Imagine standing on the shore of a pristine Alaskan fjord on a summer evening in 1958, watching the sun paint the water in shades of amber and gold. The air smells of pine and salt, and the only sounds are gentle waves lapping against the rocky coastline. Now imagine that same tranquil scene suddenly torn apart by a wall of water so impossibly tall that it dwarfs skyscrapers, so violent that it strips entire mountainsides bare, so unprecedented that scientists would spend decades trying to comprehend what they were looking at in the aftermath. This isn't the plot of some disaster movie where physics takes a coffee break and logic goes on vacation. This actually happened, in a place so remote that only a handful of people witnessed nature's most spectacular tantrum. The Lituya Bay tsunami of 1958 didn't just break records. It obliterated our understanding of what water could do when the Earth decided to have a particularly bad day. Lituya Bay sits in the wilderness of southeast Alaska like a 7-mile-long scar carved into the landscape by glaciers that retreated long before humans thought to give places names. The Tlingit people, who'd navigated these waters for centuries, called it a place where spirits grew restless. They weren't speaking metaphorically. This T-shaped inlet, surrounded by towering peaks and fed by glaciers, was geological dynamite waiting for a match. On July 9, 1958, at 10:16 p.m., that match came in the form of an 8.3 magnitude earthquake that decided to rearrange the local geography with all the subtlety of a toddler playing with blocks. But here's where the story gets interesting, and by interesting, we mean the kind of interesting that makes you question whether physics textbooks need a chapter on things that shouldn't be possible but happen anyway. The earthquake triggered something that scientists call a subaerial landslide, which is a fancy way of saying that approximately 40 million cubic yards of rock, imagine a mountain the size of several city blocks, decided it was tired of being attached to the earth and took a flying leap into the bay. This wasn't your garden variety rockfall. This was geology having a midlife crisis and making catastrophically poor decisions. When that incomprehensible mass of stone hit the water, it created what could only be described as the ocean's equivalent of a nuclear explosion. The initial splash, and calling it a splash feels like calling the Grand Canyon a pothole, reached an estimated height of 1,720 feet. To put that in perspective, that's higher than the Empire State Building. It's higher than most people will ever fly in an airplane. It was a wall of water that could have looked down at the Statue of Liberty and patted her torch condescendingly on the head, but the truly remarkable part wasn't just the height, it was what this liquid mountain did next. The wave raced across Lituya Bay at speeds that would make a Formula One driver weep with envy, stripping the landscape clean as a whistle. Ancient spruce trees, some of which had been growing since before Columbus got lost looking for India, were snapped off like matchsticks and hurled aside. The waves scoured soil down to bedrock, creating what locals would later call the trim line, a perfectly horizontal scar across the mountainsides that looked like nature had taken a cosmic weed whacker to the forest. 3 boats happened to be anchored in the bay that night, because sometimes the universe has a twisted sense of timing. The Badger, skippered by Bill and Vivian Swanson, was anchored near the entrance when they felt the earthquake hit. Bill later described watching in stunned disbelief as the back of the bay seemed to explode upward, sending a wall of water racing toward them at what he estimated was 100 miles per hour. The wave picked up their 38-foot fishing boat like a toy and surfed it over the forest canopy, depositing them miraculously in deeper water beyond the bay's mouth. They survived, though one imagines they needed new underwear and possibly therapy. The Edry, with Howard Ulrich and his 7-year-old son aboard, experienced an even more surreal ride. The wave lifted them 80 feet above the treetops, giving them a bird's-eye view of destruction that no human should ever have to witness. Father and son found themselves sailing through what had been solid forest moments before, watching trees disappear beneath them like they were flying over a green carpet that was being rapidly rolled up by invisible hands. The third boat, the Sunmore, wasn't as fortunate. Orville and Mickey Wagner were swept away by the wave and never found, becoming the only casualties of what should have been a civilization-ending catastrophe but was instead just another Tuesday night in one of the planet's most remote locations. Scientists who arrived to study the aftermath found themselves confronting evidence that challenged everything they thought they knew about tsunamis. The trimline was so precise, so clearly defined, that it looked like someone had drawn it with a ruler across miles of mountainside. Trees were gone, not broken, not bent, just completely absent, as if they'd been erased by a cosmic pencil eraser. The wave had carried boulders the size of houses for miles, casually rearranging the landscape like a giant with attention deficit disorder. Sediment cores taken from the bay floor revealed that Lituya Bay had experienced similar events before, roughly every 300 years. The geography through these periodic tantrums, though none had been quite as spectacular as 1958's performance. What made this tsunami particularly fascinating to scientists was its localized nature. While the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami killed hundreds of thousands of people across multiple countries, the Lituya Bay wave spent all its energy in a 7-mile stretch of Alaskan wilderness. It was like nature had decided to throw the world's most violent party but only invited the trees. The Lituya Bay tsunami stands as a humbling reminder that our planet is far more dynamic and unpredictable than our daily suburban existence suggests. While we go about our routine lives, worrying about traffic, arguing about politics, debating whether pineapple belongs on pizza, the Earth continues its ancient dance of creation and destruction, largely indifferent to our human concerns. This event also illuminates the strange relationship between scale and impact in natural disasters. The largest wave in recorded history occurred in a place so remote that it might as well have happened on another planet. If the same wave had struck a populated coastline, it would have been the most devastating natural disaster in human history. Instead, it became a fascinating footnote for scientists and a very, very bad day for approximately several million trees. The survivors of Lituya Bay carried with them a story so extraordinary that people initially didn't believe it. Bill Swanson was accused of exaggerating until scientists confirmed that yes, nature had indeed decided to show off that night in ways that defied common sense and challenged our understanding of what water could accomplish when it really set its mind to it. Today, Lituya Bay has returned to its deceptive tranquility, the forest slowly reclaiming the scarred mountainsides. But the trim line remains visible, a horizontal scar across the landscape that serves as a permanent reminder that sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible happens, and when it does, it's spectacular enough to rewrite the textbooks and leave witnesses wondering if they've accidentally slipped into a parallel universe where physics has a sense of humor.